Okay, we are live.
Cool. Well, been a long time coming, hasn't it? Here's our first fireside AMA for Dinodawgs.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. It's I know we've been planning this for a couple of weeks, and hopefully, you guys in the community will get something out of this and get a chance to hear more about Adam, his background, his process, obviously the Dinodawg stuff, and our plans for that. So without further ado, I think it'd probably be useful if we, Adam, if you sort of gave us a bit of a rundown of who you are, and your background.
Yeah, I mean, totally. But even before that, let's introduce you as well, because the other thing is that a lot of the project's focused on me, obviously, because I'm the face of it and I'm doing the artwork. But you yourself are also on the Discord, and people can interact with you. So I'm going to throw it back to you for 2 seconds and introduce Duke Fluffysaurus, who is that is your name on Discord, and you're effectively, I mean, you are the lead, not developer, but sort of creative behind this, and it's as much your project as it is mine. So while I'm handling the artwork and the look of it, and it certainly stemmed from a conversation we had, I think it's important to acknowledge that a lot of the lore and the backstory is something that you've led and that we've sort of collaborated on together. So everyone meet Duke Fluffysaurus, who will be conducting the interview.
Yes. For the record, my name is actually James, although I do like the Duke's Fluffysaurus line. So yeah, whilst we focused a lot of the content on the website and talking about Adam's career, mainly because what we felt is within the NFT space, there's a real dearth. That is to say, there is not a lot of doxed artists who are credible. There's, in fact, what we've seen a lot of recently is people who are doing projects as a sort of cash grab, and they're outsourcing the artwork to somebody who's probably in a completely different country.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do that, which is why we've really sort of focused in on Adam, and also Adam has fantastic credentials that are very highly relevant to the project. And whereas my background's relative to it, I'm more on from an enthusiast's point of view. So I've been collecting NFTs, the last over 2021, which is pretty much as long as anyone has been. And I've got a lot of passion for the space and seen it evolve. Started speaking to Adam a few months ago about whether or not he'd be interested in doing it.
I mean, honestly, we've been talking about this for about a year, is the truth. And you were the one that won me over, in actual fact, because we delved into we're doing individual NFTs, but the collection seemed like the project that we wanted to do. And so those of you who are wondering, we will talk about the birth of Dinodawgs, but it's very much something that you pushed me to do, and then the idea was born of our conversation. So this is why you and I are the most active on the Discord, because it's very much our baby.
Yes, there are other members of the team, but they're doing things like marketing on Twitter.
You won't see. They're in the background. They're everything, all the devs and everything. It's all behind the scenes. So you and I are the face of it.
Exactly, and it's quite funny because I think from your point of view, initially you took quite a lot of convincing, and
yes.
then you saw the community and the sort of the potential.
It's great, and not just to we'll go into the questions officially in a minute, but I think just to highlight to people, that's the whole point behind the this interview, is that we want to give everyone the full background on the whole project, answer all these questions so they're out there, and because I've answered a bunch of these questions already, and it's just a case of no one wants to scroll through weeks and weeks of Discord, so we're going to put it out there officially and explain our reasonings and our thinking and why we got into it and all that stuff. So I think that's probably a good segue as any to launch into the first. Well, I tell you what, I'll do my background first.
That's useful.
Yes, that is useful. So as James has put out there, I'm a visual effects, I suppose, visual effects artist. But I mean, after 20 years, it's very hard to say, you know, you're just an artist, because I obviously have supervised projects. When I started, it was very much, I was started as a runner, you know, I mean, worked my way up. So yes, I've worked as 20 odd years in the industry, in London, not entirely in London, did a couple of years in the States, worked in New York for a couple of years, working in visual effects. And for those of you who aren't fully clear on that, it's not like physical special effects, it's computer generated graphics, CGI. And it is anything. My primary background is an asset artist or a modeler. Just think of it as like digital sculpting. So this is why it's very easy to actually identify my work, because when you see that CG element on screen, it's very easy to say I made that. So with things like Rocket Raccoon, I was a big part of the team that developed Rocket Raccoon, Two-Face. A lot of the creatures in Guardians of the Galaxy, World War Z, that it's very easy to point at the screen and go, yeah, I made that. So that's my background. Obviously, there's a plethora of films to cite, but the big ones that stand out are Guardians of the Galaxy, World War Z, John Carter of Mars, Golden Compass, The Dark Knight, and very recently Tenet, which last year won the visual effects Oscar. So that gives you a little bit of my background. I think that's enough. Yeah, cool.
So there's a few things that I think, as from the community's point of view, that I think they'd be particularly interested in. So I think, firstly, I think what it's quite, VFX is quite complex, certainly to people who aren't doing VFX.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting for people to understand, how the different departments more or less interact with each other.
Sure.
And the way I would describe your role, if I may, is if we look at a movie, okay, and the director wants something in the movie that's fantastical, I don't know, a monster, let's call it a cyclops. There is a concept artist who is someone who would draw that. They can use, increasingly it's on digital, but they can also actually draw in real medium. That is then given over to you, who is the model, whose job is to take that and turn it into a workable 3D model that can be turned into something on screen. Then I believe it's over to what's called a rigger, who kind of makes it in, puts a skeleton in it and makes sure it can move along with the physics of whatever world it's in. Then I believe you get the animator who moves it, and then my understanding is after that it goes to what's called a compositor, who kind of stitches the whole thing together in a cohesive kind.
You skipped lighting and rendering at the very end, but yes, that's a very good breakdown of the process. So yeah, after it's been animated, the scene is lit and rendered, and then the compositor has it last. And they normally take the CG element, let's say it's Dobby from Harry Potter, and they composite Dobby into the footage that they shot on set. So yes, that is a good breakdown. You're absolutely right. Concept art is traditionally done by concept artists, but these days it's more and more increasing that we will do a concept sculpt in 3D, because the directors want to see things in a three-dimensional environment. So I've done that.
So you'll be the first point of call.
Sometimes. I mean, I posted stuff on the Discord the other day with the Fusaki creature from Guardians of the Galaxy, which is the little frog creature on the gambling table. And although we had concept art, we definitely had to realize it in 3D before we even began the process, because it was a creature that in 2D you're like, oh yeah, that looks cool, but it doesn't make sense. You have to really be able to understand it from 360 degrees from different dimensions. And then a lot of the time these days, if a director or production is working very hand in hand with the visual effects company, they won't necessarily even bother with the concept. They'll just say, hey guys, can you knock us up some designs? And if you've got a modeler, an artist like myself, that's the sort of work we live for. We're just like, great, I'm going to create a whole load of weird and wacky creatures. And again, I'm trying to post as much of this behind the scenes stuff on the Discord as possible. But it very much goes towards my background as a creator. It is realizing. So there's working with client where you're realizing an established concept, which is very much more of a technical skill, like how should I do this, how should I execute it, and then there's the creative side where you're like, I need to realize their vision, which is often just dictated to you, in a meeting. So there's definitely different sides to it.
And I think, I'm not sure if these questions actually came out in the AMA the suggestion box, but it certainly came up a few weeks ago, and I can't quite remember who it was who asked, but there were a couple of guys in the community who were really interested. Maybe they were younger guys, I don't know, but they were very interested in kind of how do you even get into this industry? Like, how did you get your break into it? And obviously, you entered the industry now about 20 years ago, rather. God, lost track of time. So how would you advise somebody today if they were enthusiastic about getting into VFX? What's the best route in?
I think I even know the guy that answered that. It was a guy in Australia. I think is it Ed NFT or something like that. There was a whole thing about people asking, I wanted to get in VFX, how do I do it? How did you do it? And weirdly, I do a lot of industry talks at events and stuff like that. So it's a question I'm really used to. I'll tell you how I got in, which when I got in 20 odd years ago, it was a very young industry, and there was only a couple of places you could even do any training. So I was doing a graphic design degree, which again goes to a little way towards my background for this project, but I was just not very passionate about graphic design, but very passionate about movies. And I did a little process of elimination and went through that and decided, I couldn't act and I wasn't a writer. Directing I thought of, but didn't go for it. And in the end, I was like, well, I'm pretty good with computers. And it actually came down to two things. It came down to physical animatronics, and it came down to visual effects. And I'll tell you how I got into it. I went down to Camden Town in London, and the Jim Henson Creature Shop used to be based there. And I stood outside the office and accosted anyone that came out those doors and just said, how do I get a job here? And not many, but a lot of people ignored me, but a couple of them did say to me, you need to go and learn a software called Maya. And I was like, oh, okay, thinking to myself, someone's going to tell me how to learn circuitry or sculpting or something. And so I went and looked into Maya and realized it was the industry standard for computer graphics for animation. And I did a 3-month intensive course, and then which I had to take a loan to do. And then basically worked my way up from the bottom. As I said earlier, I started as a runner at a film company called Dinodawg, and 15 odd years later came back to Dinodawg as a supervisor, which is a nice little completion of that story. But I spent 3 years like odd jobbing around the place, working on BBC Kids TV. I worked on some commercials. I worked on some little short projects, and then eventually got my break. First film I ever got the Golden Compass. And then it went on to win an Oscar, which was amazing. So I was the armourer for that job. I worked on the polar bear armour, which was awesome, fantastic, dream come true. And to go to your second half of your question, how do people get into the industry? It's in from my experience, it was down to passion and drive. If you're passionate about it and you put in the work, there's no reason you shouldn't succeed. You don't even need to do these expensive courses that I did. So much of this is available online, so you can pretty much do all this from the comfort of your own home PC. So I would say go off, learn it if you're interested, and then just approach companies. They right now they're with the streaming stuff, Netflix, Amazon, Apple. There's just like so much work out there. And they all need artists, and they want to invest in graduates. So it's very much about just keeping that passion and keeping positive and sending your work off. And honestly, I'm online. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I get a lot of questions from people, how do I do this, how do that? And I'm always happy to answer questions. It's quite a nice little community, much like our Discord community. There you go.
It's very interesting. I mean, I do think when the industry was younger, one thing I think you were very fortuitous about was the fact that you were in London, and London is a major, if not the major, VFX hub. However, what I have seen over the last, particularly over the last 10 years, is as you say, these online resources means that whilst yes, it's probably still an advantage to be in a VFX hub, in terms of like developing your skill set, you can do it from anywhere. And I actually remember, I won't name the guy, but there was a guy on YouTube who was from a country that wasn't associated with the leading VFX.
Yeah.
And we used to, there was a video he did about a long time ago.
Oh,
And
it's a long time ago.
His attempt at an animation. You know the one.
I know the one. It was hilarious.
Yeah. And it was hilarious. Now I actually subscribed to him just because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And years later, his animation quality is fucking amazing.
Do you know what?
And yeah.
Now I was going to say, do you know what it is? He got his work out there. And it was terrible, but it was epic. He tried to do an entire feature animation movie, and you and I watched it, and it was awful. He did everything. He did the modeling, the rigging, the animation, because he'd only just taught himself. It was absolutely terrible. But it did the rounds. People saw it, and then you're right, people subscribed. And he went off and he learned from it. He took it on the chin, he learned from it, and his work genuinely got a lot better. So, it was a great experience for him. I assume it was, but you're right. I also have followed his development.
Now, I'm going to do a selfish question because I'm the master in this AMA. My favorite piece of work you've ever done is Harvey Two-Face's messed up Two-Face side.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the coolest thing in your career, even though in a career of many cool things. How did you get the Dark Knight gig, and how did you find sculpting that model?
That's a really good question. This was shortly after I'd started at Framestore. I was pretty much sort of a mid-level artist at that point, and we finished on the Golden Compass, and a guy had been working on Two-Face, and he was leaving to move to Australia, and they needed someone to step in and finish it, and my boss they straight up volunteered me. At the time, my supervisor, he didn't tell me, they just asked, and he said, "Oh, Adam can do that," and he vouched for me. And I spoke to him a while back, afterwards, and I was like, why did, they had people they thought could do it, and he pushed me to the front of the list. And, he was saying, well, this goes back to something that we interviewed when he interviewed me. He said, the thing is, when you interview someone, you hire someone, they have a show reel, they have a portfolio of work. So you kind of already decided if they can do the job before you've even had the interview. And the interview is very much about, will you get on? Are you a nice person? Are you going to work in the office? Are you going to work together? And he said, that's entirely what the interview was about. And I had a good interview, really liked me, and then I became part of the team for the Golden Compass. And he just said, he wanted to give me that opportunity, and so that's how I got the role on it. What for a guy I've been collecting comic books since I was 11. What a dream come true, getting to work on that. It's amazing. And what's hilarious about that job as well is that I would say 60-70% of my work isn't even on screen, because they were so concerned on that job about how scary he was going to look that we did 3 different iterations of Two-Face, and the one that went in was our original one. But you'll notice when you look at it, it's sort of very anatomically correct. You can see a lot of the skull, a lot of the bones, and of course, if you've got a real burn victim, it's quite horrific. The flesh sort of melts and then it reseals, and you get scar tissue. And so we did a couple of other versions which were much more like, it was scar tissue, and they were awful. It was the stuff of nightmares. I don't mean awful, quality. They were just really, really scary. And but in theory, it was showing less of a skeleton, and somehow they thought that would maybe be more acceptable, but it was completely opposite. So there were 3 Harvey Dents floating around, and 2 of those never saw the light of day, and never will. So no, and that's a case of a lot of visual effects where you have directors that we sort of refer to as shoppers. They come in with an idea and they don't know what they want, and they want to see 3 or 4 versions, and then they'll pick one. So a lot of the work you do never sees the light of day, which is it's something you just got to live with. There was a whole.
presumably you've got to sign an NDA on that.
You've got to sign an NDA, yeah, absolutely. Which is another reason why these are never going to see the light of day. They belong to the company. There was a whole alternative ending to the Golden Compass that we did, and they changed their minds on it, re-edited it, recut it, re-edited it. So that never saw the light of day. There's so much of that work, and as I say, you've just got to learn to live with it. But again, this happens with any sort of artwork. You might do something with your client, and you might spend ages doing it, and they don't want it, so you have to do revisions, or you have to change it. It's just part of the industry. And in actual fact, if you recall, Dinodawgs did not start as dogs. It started as crocodiles, and we did a number of versions, and then it was fine, but it wasn't really exciting, either one of us. And then we went off and I did a whole new load of characters, and I think I sent you about a dozen, and there was maybe 2-3 stood out, and the more we thought about it, the more that the Dinodawgs worked. But again, all that work, no one's going to see that. That's all just part of the creative process.
Which segues nicely into our first official community, which is going to be from. We could either do. Let's do Sloth Lego Man.
Oh yes.
This question.
Very active on the community. Sloth is.
Yeah, he is, or she is. Who knows?
Yeah, true.
What was the original inspiration for Dinodawgs, which you've sort of started answering? But
it's a really good point to segue into that. That's a good point. So basically, we did a load of characters, and you and I had talked about what we wanted to do. But the truth is that you and I have, for a while ago, talked about a creative project of sort of magical forest creatures for some time. And in fact, a lot of the 3D stuff that you see on my Instagram account, they all live in that same world. There's a big troll, and there's a leaf rabbit, and there's a little gremlin character. They all live in this same world that you and I have talked about. And it was very much about coming up with a character that was somehow a combination of things and unusual, but sort of, it's a weird thing to say, but both cool and cute at the same time, and I threw a bunch of you. There was some aliens and stuff, and the Dinodawg, it was a little cute little puppy, dog with its tongue out, with the collar on and everything. And I think that it just sort of worked instantly. And then you and I, we just ran straight away. We're like, oh great, clearly he's part of a pack. And then how big is that pack? And how big is their little community? And where did they come from? And I think the ideas just started rolling, and it's really lovely when you've got a creative project that's organic. It wasn't like contrived. It just instantly came off the paper. So I think that's how would you agree? That's kind of the concept came about?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, it was a bit of a love at, not first sight, but 10th sight or whatever, because we were throwing around a few ideas. We were talking about whether to do it in 3D or 2D, given Adam's background as a 3D artist.
And we did try a couple of 3Ds to start with, if you remember.
I just think, I'm not going to rule out ever doing, we're actually working on a 3D Dinodawg for the collection, but one-off. But I've yet to see too many 3D NFT projects that really stand out. There's something there's something about the realism of 3D that I don't think lends itself to the profile picture type.
You know what project. It is about the Dinodawgs? I think because of the nature of the illustration, they have a lot of character, and they have a lot of character because of its simplicity. It's in a weird way, I'm going to compare it to something really off the wall. Peppa Pig. The Peppa Pig characters are really, really simple, but they have a lot of character straight away. Daddy Pig, you get straight away. He's got so much going for him. That 2D style, it screams attitude, straight away. Whereas a lot of the 3D ones, although they're beautifully crafted, it's sort of like a conveyor belt. They're just...
They look soulless.
They do.
And this is what I would say to people. Think about Pokemon. Imagine if... And you would have seen
That's a great example.
If you Google 3D versions of Pikachu, you'll see he doesn't come off the page in the same way.
He doesn't, no.
And that's what we found. And it's not like, there wasn't a technical opportunity to do it with Adam's expertise. It didn't sing as much. And when we were throwing around these ideas, when the original Dinodawg Adam drew out, straight away I was like, that's the one. That is the one. And it was also, it had character. It was idiosyncratic in the sense that it had a style to it that I haven't seen in many other projects. I think a lot of projects are ripping each other off. I mean, have you seen how many ape projects there are?
I mean, but that's again, that's the thing. That's not creative. That's nothing new. It's just like it's a rehash of an idea that worked. And again, what I like about Dinodawgs is that it's our idea. It's not attempting to take someone else's and change it or make it better. It's a completely original concept. And I think that's the background of where it came from. In terms of the style, again, I think I've gone into this a little bit on the Discord, but it's a style of illustration that I've always had, but it's, my personal sort of fun little toony style that I do just for me. It's never really been born into any projects, but it's something that I gave this backstory on the Discord where during the lockdown in particular, and the kids are at home, I've got 2 boys. We've made our own comic books and we've talked about storytelling and all that kind of thing, and it was a style that was very much part of that, sitting with the kids saying, hey, what do you draw? And they love dinosaurs. So obviously I've drawn a lot of dinosaurs and dragons and things like that over the last couple of years, and I've loved that. It's just so much fun and it's so quick and iterative, and I think that was why we switched, because there's a level of character that we've just talked about that really comes across in that 2D style. And actually, I'll be honest with you, that 2D, almost slightly graffiti, you could see it as a cartoon. I don't think there's a lot of that on NFTs. There's a lot of very illustrative, but there's not a lot of that kind of cartoon-esque style out there. And I think we've captured something there.
So, question from Starlaw's dad.
Yes, very prominent member of the community.
He is, yeah. Has asked, what do you want to achieve with your NFT collection?
That is a good question. So this is, I think, effectively to both of us, really, because it's, or the team as a whole, really. But certainly, I think what we're doing here is telling a story, right? It's a bit like making a Smurf village, And what's great about this is that every single time I drop a sneak peek on the Discord, people have a favourite, people have a character they spot, and we're getting lots of that feedback's fantastic, because that's exactly what I think we're putting out there. Every Dinodawg in the collection has a character, has a personality, and the main thing we're looking to get out of it is building this collection, building the body of work that could be taken in any number of directions. But I think the work itself, the project itself, is the number one goal. And I think that one of the main achievements with any art piece is people getting their own something out of it. It's what the audience perceives. So, I mean, look, when you were a kid, did you have a favourite Ninja Turtle? Did you have everyone? I feel like people.
That was my favourite Ninja Turtle.
Who was?
Michelangelo.
Right. So there's a character that spoke to you, and I feel I want the same thing out of the Dinodawgs. So number one, it's about finding an artwork that someone wants to buy, right, as part of the collection. But beyond that, I think these characters lend themselves to any number of different projects beyond that. And we've talked in the roadmap. We talk about a potential PvP game. I think it lends itself to that really well. Personally, I'm a big collector of like vinyl toys. I would love to get these into vinyl figurines. Like it's the same thing. It's collectibles, but it's an actual physical representation of that. And I think that's a real interesting oxymoron between the digital art you're buying and then a physical representation of it. I think that's fascinating. But there's more beyond that. I see it works well as a cartoon. We've talked about looking into that. There's any number of things. So if anything, I think just getting the project launched and out there is the first of many different ways it could go. But it's very much, I think, about storytelling, and this is why the lore is such an important part of it. I think people are like, oh, the backstory is support of the art. Absolutely not. It's as important. And we've got this great video on YouTube that tells the backstory of the Dinodawgs, and it's only part one. That's the other thing. Part two's out there in written form, but the video is hopefully we'll get another video out soon. But I think the storytelling is a really big part of it. Well, what's your take on it?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think with the NFT space, you've got, on the one hand, you've got things like Ecomi, and they are using existing franchises like DC Comics and Marvel, and kind of making NFT versions of that. So you're taking something that's already out there. Then you've got stuff that is kind of, so things like the Punks and like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, where they did the art first, and then they're sort of putting together maybe some merch in inverted commas, but there's not. And I love the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and like it seems like sacrilege in NFT to sort of say, well, yeah, but they did just profile pictures first. But what you don't see a lot of is a cohesive kind of storytelling along with it, and I think that's what we're trying to do here. And yes, I see it lending itself very well to a game, and certainly I think that's probably top of the list.
Yeah.
I think there's other things, as you said, vinyl toys. I think there's potential for some sort of show, whether it be like a Netflix thing or a cartoon, whether that's adult or child based or both. That would be interesting. So I think there's a lot of avenues certainly this could go in. The other thing that's interesting at the moment is obviously the metaverse side, and I think that is so in its infancy. That's going to evolve as much. If you look at how NFTs have evolved since the start of the year till now, well, just think about what the metaverse stuff is going to do over the next year or so. And I think there's metaverse partnerships. So whether or not you can partner up with an existing metaverse like Sandbox or something like that, and kind of have a Dinodawgs angle there, or whether or not there can be something within the game where the game has a sort of metaverse.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around right now, and I think that is an interesting avenue to explore. Although it seems like a lot of people are jumping on that bandwagon. I mean, I was watching a very interesting breakdown of NFTs and where they're going, and there was a whole notion of like, if you've got an ape, you're going to set it as your profile picture, and that in a way is like a status. It's like a badge of honor, and I would love Dinodawgs to go that way. You know, that people get their Dinodawg and that's it, that's their Dinodawg, and they're super proud of it and they're going to show it. I mean, yeah, profile pictures is literally the surface of that identity in a way.
Well, I mean? Something else that was quite interesting, and it was something Gary V was talking about with his NFT stuff, which is when you mint an NFT, when you own an NFT, the creator of that NFT can add value to that NFT even years after the mint, theoretically. So it could be that it becomes a ticket to a members club. I think that's something that the Bored Ape Yacht Club are trying to sort of turn it into. But it could be all sorts of interesting things. So as your career and my career continue, these Dinodawg NFTs might be doing things and might have access to things that we haven't even conceptualized yet.
Absolutely. And I think that the feedback that we're getting from the community is also a really big part of this, because it's very much about building that community from day one, and as a group growing. Now, obviously, as the lead creatives, we have those ideas, but equally, what people want to get out of it as members of that community is also a really important thing. So.
Exactly, and you can add to it, and you can take it down interesting routes, and definitely you can get the feedback. And I think that's one thing that I think that we've been quite keen on from day one, particularly on the disc.
It's a really central part of, I think, our whole ethos is being honest and open and involving everyone.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. So Starlaw's dad asked another question, which is, do people in your industry that you've worked with, or that will be buying your NFTs?
That's not sure. That's an interesting one. There's a lot of questions floating around this about my relationship to my industry, and
just to be clear, what's he saying? Can your industry network assist in the development of this NFT collection?
This is what I'm saying. So there's been a lot of questions around this, and it's obviously people want to know, is it going to be promoted? there's a guy who sits 2 seats down from me, and he's a huge NFT collector. He's massively invested in crypto. There's a guy I'm speaking to regularly in the office who's launching his own NFT collection. It is a part of the culture, the world we live in right now. So yes, there are people in my industry that will be buying my NFT. There will be people in my industry that are already promoting my NFT. But to be clear, this is the same as effectively, really. This is I view it as the same as anyone else. These are people in my world, but there are people who are avid NFT collectors who work in recruitment. There are people that work in finance. There are people that work, in the deli down the road. It doesn't really make a difference. It's the only difference, I guess, is that I have links to other creative people, sure, and as I say, friends of mine are making their own NFT collection. So yes, I hope this has a cross-market appeal to different people, and it'll appeal to people who are creatives like myself, but appeal to everyone. So yeah, there'll be people buying it and hopefully promoting it. I mean, I think the project has mass appeal anyway.
Another question from, I think it's Star Wars Dad again. Can we buy or get a signed NFT?
I saw this on the Discord. It's hilarious.
I'll tell you what's quite interesting about this. The short answer is that I think definitely that's something we want to do at some stage. Beeple, if you buy one of Beeple's artworks from OpenSea, not OpenSea, Nifty Gateway, I think it is. Anyway, can't remember where you buy it. But if you do, what you actually get is you get this cool kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's looks like an award, but it's not really. It's a sort of standalone type physical thing that you can stay in your house somewhere. And I think that's a really nice extra. So, until we do exist in the metaverse, it's nice to be able to show people that you've got something. Now, I'm not saying we're going to do that with every single Dinodawg NFT, but I do think that as we, develop it and do ultra rares and specials, and particularly competitions, I think I definitely like to look at something like that, and that could be signed for sure.
I think a signed bit of NFT in a funny way, it devalues the NFT because you're attributing it to one person and not the NFT itself. So I get that it might make it rarer, but how I see it is that if you get involved as a member of the Dinodawg community, you buy a Dinodawg, you are part of that membership, and there will be, we've already talked about this, once after mint, there will be exclusive things just for NFT holders, Dinodawg holders. And yeah, certainly I'll throw out some signed merch. It's fine. We'll be doing some of that, absolutely.
I know what you're saying. You don't want to undermine the principle of the NFT.
I don't want to undermine the principle.
Signature.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, absolutely. But there'll be, certainly if people are looking for a bit of movie merch connected to my VFX background, which 100% is the selling point, so I totally get it. We'll throw out. We can throw out some signed bits from me and anyone else that particularly gets involved in the project. But again, that's going to be definitely a for members only kind of deal. I mean, listen, for those of you who are not on the Discord, get on the Discord because I'm regularly dropping little behind the scenes of some of the projects I've worked on in the past. So even just by being involved in the community, you're getting bonuses anyway. But yeah, there's plenty of that little more exclusive stuff that we can do for sure.
And another question that comes from someone is, and I think I'll take this one initially. Where do you see the NFT market going? So we touched on this with a previous question.
We did.
Now, obviously, so where did it start? Well, it seems that early in the year till now, the profile picture collections have been very popular. And I think that as long as people are getting kind of, integrations with Twitter and blue ticks and the rest of it and all the stuff that's going on with that will continue. And it's a very accessible way of getting involved. I think the metaverse thing is so early, and I think that's obviously going to go a long way. But more widely, I think we're going to see NFTs used in day-to-day, I want to even say non sort of crypto circles much more widely. So people buying festivals, people going and seeing their favorite band. We've seen it. It's not as talked about anymore, but we saw it with sports teams, earlier in the cycle, and I think that will develop further. So I think existing brands will be doing all sorts of sort of NFT linked projects. Some will turn out to be incredibly popular and innovative, and some won't work. But the theme that I think is going to increase, and this is kind of what we're trying to do once the collection is done, is I think the participation of the NFT holder and the brand or the series that they are that the NFT is about. I think the communication between those two lines is going to increase. I think the activity of NFTs, I don't think it's going to be this kind of static thing where it's like, a bit like when you bought a comic book. You buy a comic book and that's it. You stick it on your wall and that is the end of it. I think the NFT thing is going to get increasingly dynamic, and things like the community having a vote. That's something I'm definitely keen to do. The Dinodawgs thing is, an NFT grants you a stay in the collection and the brand, and that's where I see the NFT market going. And I think NFTs are going to be everywhere to the point where you almost forget they're NFTs. I think it's every single thing that is brand is going to be an NFT for something.
I think people are still figuring it out. But publicly, people are still figuring it out. There are people that invested early in NFTs, people that were already involved in crypto that saw the value of it and saw what it could be, and it's still evolving. It's still working itself out. And I don't know if you know, last week was the Miami Art Fair, and there were people selling NFTs at the art fair as one-offs. Artists selling their work as NFTs, and suddenly there is this huge call out for people to say, hey, we want more of this. We want more of this particular. Do you have any artwork that you are selling as an NFT? Do you want to sell it as an NFT? We can help you sell it as an NFT. It's because they've suddenly gone, right, okay, fine art, that works on this. People doing digital art, it can be translated from a physical thing into an NFT. We've got bands putting out whole albums as NFTs, and people are still working out how is it going to be used. And honestly, I think the sooner that people get involved and start investing and start understanding how it works, the sooner as a global whole, this can evolve into what it's going to end up being. I mean, it's year one, effectively, of NFTs. Who knows where this will be next year? It's already evolved from like March to now. The collection thing is something that has very much taken off. Who knows what it's going to be in 6 months, a year? It's growing, and I think the key thing is not saying what it's going to be. Is just to be participating.
Exactly, and that is an interesting point you made about the one of ones. That is an appetite that I think. And what's really interesting is the one of one art pieces when NFTs first started really didn't sell. You were getting genuine digital artists doing one of ones, and people weren't buying them. They were just interested in the profile picture stuff. And that's now coming full circle, where let's face it, there are a lot of profile picture collections, of which we are one, and a proud member of the community. But I do think now there is an increased appetite of individual pieces of art.
Absolutely. Because people have worked out how it works and how it's going to work as well.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, there's lots of exciting avenues. I'm going to try my French here. So, c'est le souverain, le terrain.
One of our French members.
Something about the ground. It's the something ground. Soul, south of the ground. I don't know. That's my French done. Wants to know, what are your motivations in life, and what thing are you most proud of?
Oh, that's the sort of question that makes you sit back and think. What are my motivations in life, and what am I most proud of? My motivation. Listen, I'm going to sum it up. I'm going to sum it up really shortly. I want to make cool shit. You always want to be making the next cool thing. Honestly, for the films, the big blockbuster films, the Marvel films and stuff, you can't not get excited about things like Rocket Raccoon or Two-Face or any of those things. Always want to be making cool shit. I've always believed that you always want to be improving, you always want to be learning. So very much every job I do, I try to try stuff that I've not done before. I'm constantly studying things like anatomy and sculpting technique and physical form and all that stuff, how stuff works. So that's always what drives me forward. The NFT thing is absolutely connected to that because I've not done a collection of this work before. I've not publicly put out this style before, even though it's something I've been doing for a while. So again, it's like something new, try something new, keep growing. And actually, you and I have commented as we've developed the idea. We've noticed the artwork, as the evolution of it has gone through, has got better and better. So always improving, always moving forward. Honestly, I'm very proud. He talks about what thing am I most proud of. I'm proud of my body of work. I've always have been, and it's something that's why we're being very forward about it with the project. We're saying this is a creative. I'm a creative. This is this creative's work, and although that work is not the project, you should know that the attention that I put into that work is going into this project as well. So I'm very proud of my work and what I do, so I'm proud of this thing. But it's very hard to pinpoint it down to what is the one thing I'm most proud of. But the body of work as a complete thing is definitely what pushes me to do more, I would say.
Another question from the same person. What do you believe was the one project you worked on that put you on the map, so to speak? Now, that's quite an interesting question for you because I think in your career, you've actually worked on quite a few big budget films.
You're right. It's really hard to do. Now, as a, there's a lot of splashing of Rocket Raccoon on my website and on, my Instagram and all that stuff. But that's possibly because I enjoyed it the most because as I've said in this before, that I've been collecting comic books since I was 11. So, that's my favorite. But would I say that put me on the map? I don't know. I did 9 months hard graft on John Carter of Mars, which a lot of people saw and loved, but a lot of people didn't see. That was a huge Disney project that came out in 2012. And then I worked on World War Z, which was Brad Pitt's zombie movie, and it's the first time I worked as a supervisor on that film. And within the industry, that put me on the map. So it's different times in your life, different things will have put you out there. Certainly, honestly, working on the Dark Knight did me a lot of favors. I would say, absolutely. I don't know. It's all everything has value, and again, I've said this before. I said this at the beginning when we talked about getting started in the industry. I think that how you conduct yourself and how you interact with people, your reputation as someone to work with or work for is very important. So I always make sure that I put my best foot forward with every project. Let me ask you, what of my projects for you stands out? Because you're familiar with most of them.
Well, as I said earlier, I do think the Batman work was stand out, and that's such a memorable film.
I think you might be right. I think that was the first project that I got, and I just went, "Oh, this is it. This is a big time."
And also with modelers, sometimes you do something really key, right? Sometimes you do something that's really noticeable in the film, and sometimes you work on a spaceship that it has a 5-second clip, and I think the cool thing about your work in The Dark Knight is how it's probably the most major piece of VFX modeling in the whole movie is Harvey Two-Face's face.
Do you know what? That's interesting because that movie is actually caked in VFX, but Christopher Nolan has become known for, at least publicly claiming that he doesn't use visual effects. When having worked on at least 2 of his movies, I can tell you that he has so much visual effects in his movies, but he always works with companies and goes to efforts to hide it as much as possible, so it looks very real and not. That's the key with good visual effects is doing it so that people don't spot it. But you're right, Harvey Dent is. I don't think it's done well, and it's done well enough that people doesn't take them out of the movie. Do you know what I mean? But I think anyone, people know that is a visual effect. When you sit back and think about it, obviously Aaron Eckhart didn't burn half his face off, and there's no way that could have been done without prosthetics. So it's clearly a visual effect. But yes, it's the standout piece from that film for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because in Breaking Bad, when Gus Fring gets blown up, they do a similar thing, but it doesn't look as believable for some reason. And
it's overcooked.
I'm not going to have a go at the VFX team for that, because I don't think it's them. I actually think it's through the direction. I'm not sure if a man getting blown up by a grenade in a room should walk out of the room.
No. I can tell you, it's always the case of less is more. Always. When stuff becomes too fantastical, people don't buy it. He wouldn't be standing in that shot. You're right. He absolutely not. So I always think use VFX to support your film, not have the VFX drive the film. And in that case, that shot is all about the graphic of it, which is the wrong way to do it. But, yeah.
Next question, probably one for me. Connor asks, how many dogs can we mint? Do the whitelists get a discounted price or just an earlier minting opportunity? So answer the last part first. The whitelisters will get a discounted price and an earlier minting opportunity. So they get both. How many dogs can we mint? We're still working that out.
I think it's... No, sorry, go on.
Go on.
Well, I was going to say, I think we could use this to say to people, there's certainly going to be more than one. They're not going to be limited to one, right?
I think one of the things I dislike about a lot of whitelists is it takes work to get on the whitelist. Mm-hmm. You've got to be an early adopter, you've got to support the project, you've got to either invite people or be very active in the community, or both. And I sometimes think that if you're going to give them just one spot for that, I sometimes think that's a kind of kick in the nuts. And I don't want to say this, and then when we come to the whitelisting, we only award one each. I'd like it if whitelist has got more than one.
Yes, sure. That's what we've been discussing lately.
Well, certainly if they want it, I mean, they don't have to, but certainly if some whitelisters really, because these are the people that are, in my opinion, your whitelisters are the columns of the community.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're the people that really take. Without the whitelisters, you haven't got the early support of the community, and I think they should be rewarded, not just as a gesture, but in a big way. So definitely discounted price, definitely earlier minting, and I'm confident to say that we would like to certainly give them more than one mint. How many we will have to work out close to mint date. So leave that with us for the time being. But I'm certainly sort of.
Listen, the summary here is that it pays to be part of the community. It pays to be on the whitelist, and not just just automatically getting in there. It pays to be part of the community, because you'll get all these benefits, especially if you pay attention. If you follow us along, and we release this sort of information particularly as we get closer to the mint date.
And on a personal note, I feel quite passionately about it, because I've been one of the earlier adopters of not only have been whitelisted on some other NFT projects, but I've also been part of seed for a crypto project, and I've seen ones where the people supporting it early don't really get that rewarded, and I've seen ones where they really show that they value those people who support them early, and I, as a result, I do think it is really, it's our way of showing our gratitude for that early support. So yeah, but basically, I think the whitelisters should get all sorts of benefits, but we'll work that out along the way.
Cool.
This might be the last question.
This is so fun, though. Such a good time.
To be honest with you, you know what? What hopefully may happen is when people are listening to this, maybe they'll have more questions, and maybe we do another AMA. In a few weeks, because it is definitely really enjoyable. So Connor also asks, do you have any further plans for future projects, or do you just want to focus on this alone? Is there a possibility of wanting to work on an AAA title? Again, you can ask this as well in your own way, but my take is no. I think you need to focus on the project you're focusing on. I think I've seen NFT projects where they're immediately talking about another project, like either when they're
like a totally different one.
Yeah, or something that's just a clear cash grab, and it's like, there was one, I don't want to drop anyone in it, but there was one where they were like, it was an animal, right? So let's say it was I don't know.
Most of them are animals?
Right? Yeah, of course. And then literally 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that minting, which they sold out on, they're like, oh, and here are our rabbits. And it was done. It destroyed the project as well, because people were just like, you guys aren't adding value to the existing project. You're just doing another sort of cash grab, and you're just trying to do that. So my view is that, the focus on future plans should be future plans linked to this collection, not future plans linked to something else.
Totally. What you want to do is build on the collection you have. So once this is out there, and fingers crossed to success, it will absolutely be focusing on this. Where are we going to take it? What are we going to do with it? What other forms it's going to take, and how that can add value to the original collection. That being said, I definitely want to have an evolution of this project, and we have talked, mainly as a discussion point, and we've talked to the community about this, because of my background of evolving it into a potentially 3D format, or at least a limited run of 3D. That could be, say, phase 2 of this if we wanted to do that. But a lot of this is down to the roadmap and following through with some of that, or evolving it into something else. But it's very much about saying we are committed to Dinodawgs, and it's where that goes, and not just dropping it and moving on to the next thing, which I think we both agree on.
I'll tell you what, I'm really, because I've seen it. I've seen the 3D development of the 3D dog, and I know we haven't quite finished it, but I'm super excited about sharing the 3D dog with the guys and seeing what they think of it.
So he will be a limited one-of-one for this collection, but then that is the grounds for a future collection that is directly related to this.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Exciting. End on an exciting note. I love it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, look, I think that probably is that all the questions. Let's see if there's any we've missed. I think that's most. Oh, I know. There was one. Actually, it's not on here. Someone said, "Where do you keep your Oscar? What do you do with an Oscar?"
So yes, I don't have the Oscar itself. There are, I worked on 2 Oscar-winning projects, and they are given out to the guys actually who go and actually collect it, and those are normally the actual overarching show VFX soup. Now on Tenant, I was the overarching show asset supervisor, so man, I was close on that one to actually going into collecting it, but within the top 10 people. But no, I don't have it here. I've got a number of other awards here, and I've got photos with it, which is great, but I don't have it here. Where would I keep it? I don't know. Most people keep it in the bathroom, right? Isn't that the cliche? Or use it as a doorstop. Do you know it's gold plated? Do you know also it's actually gold plated as well? They are really heavy. They're really heavy to hold. It's like brass inside, I think, and then actually gold plated. And you don't actually own it as well. That's the other thing. It's owned by the Academy. It's effectively loaned to you. You never really own it. But yeah, so there we go. But it's cool to hold one, I have to say. I've had it on loan for a day or so, which is fun,
Just around with it, take it to the pub.
Take it to the pub, yeah, dress it up, that sort of thing. It's also you're not allowed to. Well, you're not allowed, but most people take their rings off when they hold it because the metal scratches it. It's very precious, very precious. My precious.
Take their what? Sorry, they take their what off?
Wedding rings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you're rubbing metal against metal and it scratches it. Because as I say, it's gold plated and gold is a soft metal, so it will scratch it if you've got like a silver wedding band or something.
That's interesting. That's an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, take your rings off. If anyone ever gives you an Oscar to hold, take your rings off. Absolutely.
An Oscar winning Dinodawg in the collection, like a Dinodawg, a VFX Dinodawg.
There is a golden Dinodawg. There is one in there.
Well,
you might have seen it.
Maybe a Dinodawg in thick glasses, a hoodie, with a tattoo sleeve, holding a holding a Dinodawg Oscar.
Yeah. You can put them in there. Right.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's awesome. That's there we go. We've completed the first AMA.
Well, thank you for putting that together. Appreciate it. It's been fun. We should definitely do this again. And I look forward to sharing this with the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening, if you have any more questions, we really enjoy doing this. So definitely we'll have a new channel, or maybe the existing one, where you can submit more questions. And what we'll if there's an appetite for it, we'll do another one in a few weeks and answer some more questions.
Amazing. Lovely. I'll see you then.
All right.
Alrighty.